No surrender, no defeat. But maybe it's time for a little Evercade retreat. No surrender, no defeat. But maybe it's time for a little Evercade retreat.
Hello and welcome to the Evercade Retreat. My name is Gene Joke and today I'm ranking all the games from the C64 Collection 1 for the Evercade. There's probably no point me going into the ins and outs of the C64 itself. It was an 8-bit home computer and it's one that I had as a kid. Not in the early 80s, probably mid to late 80s we had it. Got a used one with a disk drive and hundreds of games. And I played it quite a lot. I enjoyed the system, but I was more of a Spectrum kid back in the day. This collection I'd played about half of the games before and I don't think I'd really heard of the others, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, there's 14 games to get through, so let's get on with the ranking. First up is Street Sports Baseball, and well, I'm British. I vaguely know what baseball is and roughly know what the rules are, but I'm far from an expert and I don't know all the nuances of it. This is basically kids playing baseball on the street, and there's some nice touches to it, selecting your different characters to put on your team, their different abilities, and yeah, it's okay I suppose, but again, I'm not really a sports person in general, and this one doesn't really do it for me. I haven't beaten the game, I haven't really played it that much, given it a go a few times, and just generally give up on it really. Not for me. Maybe for others this would rank higher, but yeah, like I said, not for me. Next up is Iridis Alpha by Jeff Minter. This is a sort of side-scrolling shoot-em-up. You fly around shooting enemies, collecting energy, and you've got to manage energy and deposit into the earth or something. I don't really get the game. I find it a little bit impenetrable. I have tried to learn it and I can't really get to grips with it, or I don't really enjoy it enough to persevere. So it's ranking lowly because of essentially my failure to really get into the game. There is some pretty good music and it's got a generally good vibe to it, but yeah, again, not for me. I haven't beaten the game and I don't really have the desire to persevere with it to get good at it. Maybe I will someday, and maybe it will feature in a video of games I've revisited and found something to enjoy in, but maybe not. And moving on, we have the Movie Monster game, and this is a game that's got some really nice presentation. You can choose from a number of different monsters based on various kaiju, and you go around, sacking the city. And there's a few different game modes and different cities with different musical tracks for the cities that are relevant to the country they're from. And there's some nice ideas here, but it's a very sluggish game, and ultimately it's just not that much fun to play through. I'd imagine as a kid I probably have enjoyed it more, just enjoying being a monster, going around and smashing things up. And the variety of game modes is quite good, but again, it just feels very slow and limited. Some nice ideas, but ultimately it doesn't really come together. Hence, it's low on this ranking. Up next is Marauder. This is a vertically scrolling multi-directional shoot-em-up. You control a tank blasting away at enemies. There is a plot, but who really cares, especially as the game loops and doesn't have an ending, so there's no in-game story, just something in the manual. It's fine, there's nothing majorly wrong with it. It can be quite challenging, but yeah, it's fine. Also in a similar vein is Subterranea. This is a horizontally scrolling shoot-em-up where you control a spaceship blasting your way through various, subterranean caverns. There are enemies to shoot, but really you're avoiding and navigating the terrain. There are various things blocking your way, and there'll be control panels to blast to get through them, and there's a few items to pick up like invincibility. And again, this is a game that loops, so there's no real ending. I think there's about 9 levels to get through. It does get quite challenging in places, but you'll probably get a bit sort of bored and found it a bit tedious before you get as far as beating it. Again, it's fine. As a budget game released back in the early 80s for a couple of quid, it would have been pretty good. You've had some fun with it. But yeah, it's nothing special. So moving on, we have Alley Cat, a game developed by Andrew Braybook, who C64 fans will find a familiar name, the creator of things like Paradroid and Iridium. And it's a shoot-em-up racing hybrid, I suppose. You enter these various races where you have to scroll up the screen, shooting bits of terrain and a few enemies, survive through to the end, rinse and repeat through different months as you progress through the, Intergalactic Racing League or whatever it is. It's okay. It takes a bit of getting used to the controls and trying to really understand what you're doing as you sort of go through blasting bits of terrain away, collecting the energy things so you don't end up blowing up or crashing into things too much. You can have some fun with it. There's not a bad little game here, but ultimately I just found it lacked anything that really hooked me. Once again, a bit of a filler game. Up next is Stormlord. This is a game that many people might rank lower than I have. This is one I played back in the day, played it on the Spectrum, the C64 and on the Mega Drive as well. And it's one I always wanted to like more than I really enjoyed it. And to be perfectly honest, as a kid I didn't really get it. I played it a bit, I liked the graphics and the vibe of it, and died and didn't really understand what I was doing. Understanding that it's more of a puzzle platformer rather than an action game really helps. It's probably got more in common with Dizzy than you might first expect. And again, that's a bit tenuous. It's quite an obtuse game, trying to work out how to beat the levels, and well, that's how they make the game long, because playing through the entire thing really wouldn't take you very long once you know what you're doing. Maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Essentially, you run around, you've got to rescue fairies, get keys to get to open doors, get various items to allow you to pass things without getting hurt or to distract enemies so you can get things. Again, it's okay, but the difficulty is quite high, again, because of the length of the game, and yeah, I think most people probably give up on it before they get very far on it. But again, if you persevere, there is kind of a fun game here, but it does miss the mark a bit more than it succeeds. Which is a shame because the music and the visuals are quite impressive for the C64. But yeah, a game that doesn't quite, like I said, doesn't quite hit the mark. And next up we have Battle Valley. This is a horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up, I suppose, is the best way of putting it. You have a tank and a helicopter. You select one or the other, and you essentially have to work your way through to the enemy base and destroy the enemy missiles and capture the base. Of course, you can't do this with one of these vehicles alone. You do need to use both in tandem, if you like, to take the base. The helicopter will allow you to take out some enemies and repair a bridge, and the tank will take out the rest of the enemies and destroy the missiles and capture the base. Rinse and repeat, essentially. It's a fairly simple premise. Although, when you first start playing it, unless you read the manual, you probably won't know what you're doing. And the controls can be a little bit cumbersome at first, but once you get used to them, there's a pretty decent game here, and it's worth a playthrough. And it's quite fun working out how best to manage the time limit and the two different vehicles and how to take out enemies and capture the base. So yeah, pretty solid little budget game here. I say budget game, it was a budget game on its original release. Now it's kind of irrelevant. I think it definitely reflects the kind of gaming that you get on the home micros that you don't tend to find on consoles or in arcades so much, and something you don't tend to find that much anymore. So it's a good little, look into a path not taken, so to speak. Next up, in this is a choice which I think is different to many people's, is Jumpman. It's a single screen platform where you run and jump through the levels, collecting various bombs, I think they're supposed to be, to stop the enemies from blowing up the world or something. Anyway, it basically plays out like a single screen platform where you've got to collect things, basically. You can't fall very far. Hell, if you even fall off a small edge, your character will die. So it takes a bit of getting used to really find the rules of the game and how it works. But once you do, and if you increase the speed, the standard speed is a bit on the slow side, but you can increase it to speed 2 and it'll be more fun. Anyway, it's quite a good little puzzle platformer. It does show its age somewhat, but it is a fun little game. But I just enjoyed others here a bit more. And next up is Summer Games. Now, Summer Games and Winter Games are both very similar games, and Summer Games is the one that I like least out of the two. Now, these are games that I played back in the day, and they're definitely ones I've got to be in the right mood for playing. More if I'm having some sort of competition either with friends or an online competition. Not every event is fun. Some are a bit more annoying than the others, using the left and right or button combinations to try and master a jump or get the speed going, things like that. But again, if you're in the mood for this sort of thing, you can have some fun with them. Really not much else to say. I think the graphics are quite well done, for the time. So yeah, it's fine. It's a solid little game. Again, some people might rank this lower or higher, depending on their nostalgia, I suppose. Next up is Winter Games, so pretty much everything I said for Summer Games applies here again. I just find most of the events a bit more interesting and engaging, except for the figure skating. I really don't like that. Although even that, I managed to kind of get fairly good at it. Again, this isn't really my kind of jam, but in the right circumstances, I have a lot of fun with it. Again, this might be a nostalgia pick, because I had a lot of fun playing this with my brother when I was little. It when it came up in Katie's challenge on the Evercade Discord, I had some fun with it. So yeah, a nostalgia pick for sure, but yeah, I can still have some fun with these games under the right circumstances. Of course, playing handheld, they're all easy to pick up and play and save your progress working your way through, trying to improve your times, your scores or whatever, So yeah, they're pretty good. Next up is Gateway to Apshai. Prior to getting an Evercade, I'd never played the Apshai games. I'm not sure if I'd even heard of them, to be perfectly honest. But since I've been playing the Evercade, I have gotten into some of these old RPGs. They may not have much going for them graphically, but I suppose the way those graphics leave something to the imagination really does something for me. I've enjoyed Cloudy Mountain, Tower of Doom, Sword of Fargol, Rogue 64, and this is in a similar vein. However, although it's maybe a bit closer to Tower of Doom than the others, I do find the lack of randomisation kind of hurts a little bit. In fact, it doesn't seem to have much of an ending, or an ending at all. You work your way through the dungeons, you get, you're not even looking for an exit as such, you're just playing against the clock, and, when the time runs out, you go to the next level. And, as much as you get to, defeat enemies and treasures you get, helps you're upgrading and things. But ultimately, I found it felt a little bit aimless, and that's why it didn't really grab me as much as the others in this, I suppose, in this genre on the Evercade have done. It's fun working your way through the dungeons once you get used to the controls, because they are, I wouldn't say complex, they're not overly complex, but it takes a little while to get used to and work out what does what and how things work. Once you do, you'll have some fun with it, but again, as I said, it feels a little bit aimless compared to other games like it. And next up is my second favourite game on the collection, and that is Lee, an action platformer where you control Bruce Lee. Obviously, because of licensing reasons, they had to drop the Bruce from the title. You control Lee as he fights the enemies, navigates platforms and various traps, and, wins the day. There is a plot to it, but at the end of the day, it's a fairly small, moderately challenging puzzle platformer. Well, it's not really puzzles, it's more of a platformer. Action platformer would probably be more accurate, wouldn't it? Especially as you're controlling a martial artist. I'm rabbiting on, really, aren't I? Lee can punch and kick enemies, you can jump out. There's a few puzzles in there. You sort of collect a few items and open trapdoors. And yeah, again, mostly it's platform based. It's quite a challenging game at first, although it's not very long. And once using a bit of save states to try and train your way through some of the later sections, which have some rather fiendish platforming in, you'll find yourself you can work up being able to play through it and beat it without using save states. Or at least that's what I did. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. It's very simple visually, but everything works. Everything's clear cut, you know what's supposed to be what. And yeah, it plays well. Although weirdly, for some reason, when I was playing it, because on the original C64 you used up to jump and the fire button to attack. On the Evercade you do have a button dedicated to jump, although you can still press up. And I'd find if I was running and jumping, I'd be pressing the button. If I was jumping straight up, I would push up. I don't know why. I'm not even sure why I'm mentioning it. It's just one of those little idiosyncrasies I noticed while playing it. It's a fun little game, and I had a bit of nostalgia for it because I played it on Spectrum as a kid. And yeah, it's still fun to play through now. And finally, far and away my most favourite game on the collection is Impossible Mission. Once again, this is a game that I played back in the day, and I didn't really know what I was doing. Although I enjoyed playing in the environment and trying to work out what to do. You see, I got it with the C64, and I think I played on the Spectrum as well. And either I never read the manual, or it didn't come with one because it was a used copy. Anyway, you're trying to defeat Dr. Elvin Atombender, who's trying to blow up the world, and you've got to sneak into his facility, solve a puzzle so to allow you to get into his sort of main room and stop his plans for world domination or something. Essentially, you have 12 hours to complete your mission, and those 12 hours are your lives. Whenever you die, you lose 10 minutes of the 12 hours. You have to navigate the various rooms, search items, get the puzzle pieces, and when you've got all the puzzle pieces, you solve the puzzle and then you take it to the final room and win. Of course, it's never that simple. The map of the base is randomised. However, on the Evercade, it starts straight in game. So when you load it up, it always starts with the same map. But if you bring up the virtual keyboard and press restore, you'll get a whole new map. And you can do this, and that can make your life easier or more difficult, because the layout of the base is randomised, but also the behaviours of the enemy robots, and they can be very problematic. So you've got the overall puzzle and the puzzle pieces you've got to get, but each room itself is a bit of a puzzle as well. They're platform based, there's various robots, and you have to navigate them, avoid the robots, search the items in the rooms to get the puzzle pieces or other items. Some of these items might have a robot sleep program, and you can go to a computer terminal and put the robots to sleep for a period of time, which can make things easier because these robots, they might move more slowly, their behaviours can change depending on the randomisation. Sometimes they're very aggressive, sometimes they'll fire lasers, and sometimes they can be absolutely impossible to get past without using the sleep or putting them to sleep. This is where the randomisation comes in, and there's so many of these sleeps available, although there is a room that comes up which has like a Simon Says type puzzle where you can get more. So there are ways around it, but again, the time limit does disappear quite quickly if you're dying a lot. Save states will come in handy, especially as you're learning the game. Some of the jumps will seem impossible, and you'll work out there's some gaps you can run across if you're running fast enough. And if you're not, you'll fall to your doom and you'll get that very famous bit of speech. One of the things notable about this game for its time is it had quite impressive speech samples. Destroy him, my robots, and things like that. Anyway, you can solve these various room puzzles and get the items, and when you've got all the puzzle pieces, you need to solve the overall puzzle as I mentioned. And these are in the form pieces, and you'll bring up your wrist computer and you can solve them. And that is pretty obtuse. Knowing what you've got to do is pretty difficult. And again, I think there's some randomization here as well. It took me ages to solve it. So not only have you got to find all these puzzle pieces and not use up too much time, but once you've done that, you've only got that whatever time you've got left to solve the puzzle, and it can take a while. And you've got hints that you can get on your wrist computer which will help solve elements of it for you. But again, every time you use this, uses up some of your time. So I finally beat this game like some 35 years after originally playing it as a kid or whatever. But the point is, it was a really satisfying moment to be able to finally beat it. And because of the randomization, I do have fun going back and beating it again, trying to do it without using save states. And so yeah, I've had a lot of fun with this game. I absolutely love it. I know some of this is nostalgia, but it's a type of game that hasn't really been replicated, at least not very often or not to this degree. It is a tricky game to beat because of the way the puzzle works, and you won't find guides online that help you all that much. So there is definitely a bit of trial and error there. Might not be for everyone, but I think those who do find to have the enjoyment in this game will find it very satisfying to beat it. So looking at this collection as a whole, now personally I do have nostalgia for the C64 and a number of these games here. If you don't have that, visually a lot of them are going to seem fairly unappealing. The fact that some games have music or sound effects and not both will put some people off. Some people have difficulty even getting into some of the games or getting started with them because of the way the setup works using keyboards and things back in the day. So this isn't a collection for everyone. If you don't have nostalgia for the C64, definitely think twice about it, look into it, do a bit of research. And I'd say none of these games, or at least very few of them, rank up there with the best games on the Evercade. And I think it's safe to say there is a fair amount of filler, but the quantity really helps, and there's a good amount of variety on this collection. So if you don't mind, really persevering, putting effort into learning games, and you can overlook simple visuals, say it's worth picking up. If all that sounds like too much effort and you just want to pick up and play and have things that are just straightforward fun, maybe don't bother with this cart. To rank it, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10 because there is filler in it. Even though I really like a few of the games here, a lot of it is very much filler. I had fun playing through them, but I won't return to them very often, if at all. So as I said, not a cart for everyone, maybe just a curio for many people. And if you're really into C64, chances are you might have something like the C64 Mini. If, like me, you're sitting somewhere in the middle, you like the C64 but you haven't bothered with the Mini, this could be a good way to go. But anyway, I think that's enough waffle for one video. As always, I'll finish with a song about one of these games from this collection. My work here is done, and I'll see you in the next video.
In a digital labyrinth I find my fate, surrounded by robots must infiltrate. Security systems a challenge to face, gotta find the pieces, no time to waste. Echoes of danger as the timer ticks, moving through corridors, making it slick. Leaping and dodging in this 8-bit sphere, gotta stay focused, can't let fear near. Impossible mission, I'm on my way. Through the darkness I'll seize the day, searching for secrets, uncover the code. This pixelated world, I'll lighten the load. Each puzzle unsolved, a piece of the plan. In this endless quest, I'll prove I can.